Southeast. Good morning, Nigeria. You're still listening to Boss Radio 98.9 FM, live from the city of Owerri. It's another beautiful Saturday morning, and I want to welcome you to today's edition of the Whispers Empowered Show, brought to you by Whispers to Humanity with support from Action Aid. My name is Didi. As usual, MJ is here. I got that. I wanted to do MJ. Not Michael Jackson, though. Mary Jacob is here in the studio. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning. Good morning, Didi.
How are you?
I'm fine.
Okay, my name is Onyeka Busugochi Emmanuel. I'm a student of Federal Polytechnic Academy.
Okay, nice to have. So we've been talking about stereotypes. I think this conversation started 3 weeks ago. And today we're talking about stereotypes that students face. That will be our topic. Last week we talked about stereotypes in families, and today we're talking about stereotypes that students face. That's why we have the students in the studio this morning. So we're going to take a very short musical break. When we come back, we're going to start the conversation proper. Welcome back to Still Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri. I know you might be wondering why I said we're going to be talking about stereotypes that students face. That's because today is World Students Day. That's why we're giving the light on students. World Students Day is marked annually on October 15th of every year. So our topic today is stereotypes that students face. If you've been following the topic since 2 weeks now, you are going to know that it's been a very insightful and interesting conversation. So quickly, let's go into the crux of the matter. We have a student in the studio. So can you tell us some of the stereotypes that you have faced as a student? We want to get like the first-hand experience.
Okay, well, as a student, when growing up or while being in the school environment, I faced stereotypes of religion, I faced stereotypes of not being that bright during my school days. I can remember an experience I had with my chemistry teacher while I was in SS1. She made the chemistry whole thing kind of bulb for me, because I'll come into class and I'm a student, I'm a very slow learner, and I had this problem of learning at the same pace with others. So when I came into class, and I'll ask questions because I would like to know, and she'll tell me I should sit down, that I don't know what I was talking about, that I should just sit down and learn from others. So that brought about my spirit went down, so I kind of hated the subject in particular. I kind of hated the subject. That's why up to today I find it hard to mix the chemicals that people learn when they are learning chemistry. But I was finding it easy with other subjects because the teachers gave me open hand. They made their environment of teaching and learning a comfortable one for me.
Very different. Do you have any stereotype of students while growing up?
I would like to say that in school spaces, different types of stereotypes exist, and sometimes people don't even know when they are started falling into some of these things. While growing up, I didn't like compliments, and I have an issue with cramming stuff. I struggle to this minute. If you tell me like 10 things, I'm understanding what you're saying, and if I'm going to tell you those things again, I'm going to say them in my words. And right now, I think it's a beautiful thing because, it helps me know when I understand. But back then, it was a struggle because some of my teachers wanted to hear exactly verbatim what they were saying, and they wanted to get it back. Okay. So then in the university, I think one of the major stereotypes that was in existence was the gender stereotypes, where certain things were normalized for the young men in my class, and it wasn't the same for the young women in my class. And sometimes it also became difficult to cope in a mixed class where there are certain level of support for the opposite gender that your gender doesn't get. It's already assumed that if you were in school, if you were in class, if you were a girl, somehow someone was putting your views in something. Somehow you're not as bright as the guys and stuff. So some of these stereotypes exist in different schools. And as much as I may not have like very practical experiences like Emmanuel have shared, and so many other people listening, that does not mean that there are no practical stereotypes that are existing in school spaces.
This exists even in the school system. This exists in the teaching system, and of course exists in the class learning spaces as well.
How were you able to handle most of the challenges you faced in school?
Okay, how I was able to handle most of the challenges is that I went to God in prayer and I gave myself to education, to study, personal study, because I started noticing of recent or when I was in school that I flow more with practical classes than the theoretical classes. So I attended more of the practical classes to cover up for the theory. So anyone out there listening or listening to us this hour, I would prefer that you find out what works out for you, because most of the teachers will not be that patient enough to walk at your own space.
How were you able to navigate the challenges and stereotypes you faced while in school?
Okay, while in school as a younger child, I think I just kept being Mary Jacob. I mean, I actually bothered less about certain things, including grades. I till now I'm not a freak of like the best grades. I just want to have the best learnings.
And don't you feel someone might feel or think or see you as a lazy student?
For not worrying about grades. No.
That means you're not a serious student now, because you should be worried about your grades.
No, I'm talking about like me in primary school anyway. I was never worried about being first position anyway, or second position or third. Of course I got those grades, but I mean, it wasn't the benchmark of my worry. Okay. And it has always been, for me, it has always been about learning more. It has always been about beating the grades, not competing in class. Okay, so when I'm talking about making the best grades, it's not like making a best grades of a good grades. I'm just talking about making best grades as far competing like what we have in primary schools, especially public schools, primary and secondary schools, where everybody's looking for the first position and all of that. So you have to give everything, kill yourself for it. So that was actually not a bench for me. I wasn't interested. I just wanted to pass. I wanted to learn, and I wasn't interested who was first or who was second. And then the stereotypes while in the university, it was just obvious that these things were existing. And if we're going to talk about people's gender, if we're going to talk about feminism, if we're going to talk about making a better society, that's because these issues exist. Okay, so it became very obvious for me that it's also not a competition with anybody. You're in school to better yourself. You're in school to learn and not to impress, and not to become like the face for anything. And if someone is going to feel that my gender is an issue for them, then it's their issue, not my issue. I think it worked for me, putting in my best and doing my thing, and then the rest was just there.
When you talked about your gender, how do you mean?
Okay, so in so many school systems in Nigeria, it has become a norm that even from a young age, where they tell you that you are a girl, so don't struggle too much with mathematics. So just do the bit you can. But you're a boy, you have to know mathematics because you have to study the very technical courses, right? And it also goes beyond that. It also goes as far as even the university spaces. When you have a course that is normalized to be for a particular gender, if another gender is doing it, it seems like, it's not usual for you, so you just keep trying, okay? And I did I studied a course that had to do with like a lot of calculations, and I was in love with calculations. I always loved mathematics and statistics. So if we were in these classes and doing all of these things, most of my lecturers wanted to normalize it that, it's a boys thing, you get. So they needed to do more, they needed to put in more, they needed to do better. And then girls is understandable when you don't do enough, okay? And that was it for me. It wasn't making any form of sense that from primary school we tell our children that, in the school space you have to specialize in this, you have to speak plenty grammar and communicate well because you're a girl. And then the boy, you have to do so many calculations and know how to use use your calculators because you're a boy and you need it. And then this graduates to going into the secondary learning spaces where we start telling the boys, okay, sciences are more difficult, so our boys should do it. Art classes, our girls should do it. Like you just start seeing the gender streamline already. And then this carries them on from that high school space to the university space where we start seeing that, okay, they have made it into these final stages of tertiary learning. And then if they're learning in these spaces, we're still telling them how to learn. We're still telling them the pace to learn. And even when you go to classes, maybe imagine going into an English class and the boy is doing better. So many lecturers would look at the girls like, this is supposed to be your thing. You get. So like when they start normalizing things like that, it becomes an issue. And that's what I talked about, gender stereotypes in school spaces. They automatically put learning spaces in Nigeria and in so many parts of the world as well have automatically put girls and boys in these boxes, these stereotypes, and saying that, okay, as girls, these are the kind of things you should do, as boys, these are the kind of things you should do. And it causes a lot of limitation for children and learners.
All right, if you're just joining, it's still the Whispers in Power Show on Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri. Let's go on this short musical break. When we come back, I'll open the phone lines and also the WhatsApp line for you to be a part of the conversation. Remember, we're talking about stereotypes students face. If you faced any stereotype in school or you're facing any, feel free to call in and share your own experience. If you listened earlier on, a student in the studio shared his own experience, and Mary Jacob also shared her own experience about studio stereotype. Did I say studio stereotype? Student stereotypes. So what are the ways you think stereotyping in schools can be prevented?
Okay, one of the ways I think that stereotypes in schools can be prevented is one, creating a comfortable space for learning. What I mean is creating a comfortable space in which you make all students see they can do what they can do. Don't discriminate. Don't make the boys feel that they are only entitled to learning science courses, while the girls are entitled to learning art courses. Because I still have friends, or I know people that are way good, which are females that are way good in science courses than the guys. So you should make them go for their dream courses.
Mary Jacob, what are some of the ways you think stereotyping can be prevented in schools?
I think it can be prevented by being intentional about it. Like I said earlier, some of us don't even know when we actually cause some of this mess in our school spaces and learning spaces. Being intentional and being very intentional that, it is a school space, it is a learning space, these are students, and these are human beings that are learning, not boys and girls that with different capacities. You get. The learning process for a better society is like a continuous thing. So we keep learning and unlearning things. So if you grew up thinking that boys can actually do this and girls can, okay, now you know better. And if you're setting up a school space, if you're a teacher, or even if you're a student, making it a point of duty to remind yourself that this is a learning space. We're all students, we're all learners, and there is nobody that should have preference. And understanding that we have our differences in our learning capacity, not in our gender. So, like Emmanuel said, you have students like Emmanuel who would learn faster with the visuals. So what are we doing to make sure that we have access to these things for them? We have children who are able to do better with the audios. We have different types of learning. We have the playful learning system. We have the artistic learning system. So which type are you imbibing? We get, like, how well are we communicating learning to students without looking at their gender and judging them to be a particular type just by how they look?
I want to ask a question. Do students stereotype their fellow students too? Does it happen?
Yes.
And what roles do teachers have to play in schools to ensure that this stereotype is prevented or curbed?
Actually, the roles that teachers have to play is by shunning such activities. Because when such cases are reported to you and you keep silent, it keeps going on. Because we have some students which are athletes outside school. They come in with the notion that they can bully their fellow students. So at the secondary level, when such cases are reported to you, you should shun it with your own personal experiences or shun it telling them that it's not good. So when such is being done the first, the second, and the third time, I think this will bring a shortage of such stereotypes in your school spaces.
Okay. Have you ever experienced stereotype in your school as a student? If you want to share your experience, feel free to call in or send in your messages. Mary Jacob, in a case where the teacher is the one, because I've been to some schools, private schools, and you see a teacher telling a child, no, 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 please, I don't want this child in my class. This child is dull. I don't want it. Give me this one. Put this particular child in my class because this one is intelligent and all that. In a case when it's the teacher that is stereotyping these kids in school, what should be done?
Okay, so we have leadership in school spaces, right? And if it's I like to make references to public schools because I know that a larger number of the mass are actually in the public schools. Yes, I love to make references in those schools. So when we have a teacher causing this, when we have a teacher doing this, if you're a parent and it has come to your notice, please go to the administrative officer, go to the head teacher, the principal, whoever is in charge. Okay, it's not good for your child. Beyond the fact that your child is slow in learning and we have to find another means, you cannot imagine what damage it does to a child hearing openly that he or she is dull. You get, like, you can't imagine how much damage it does to the child, the learning psych, everything is damaged. Some of these children start losing interest in learning entirely. Like they just shut out and zone out. I remember recently I met someone who my mom taught in primary school. And then when he realized where I was, he just kept screaming. He was excited. So he told me he himself and his friends were called the Olodos of the class. They were called the dumb kids of the class. They always had the back seats, and teachers didn't want them in their class. But that when my mom taught them, they started doing their assignments themselves. You get. And he said the only difference was that she started singing in the native language for them. So you can imagine that all it took for these kids to learn was just sing. You get. Make music with what you're teaching them. So more administrative officers in schools should start putting more attention in what really happens in the classrooms. How many times you're a head teacher, you're a principal, you're whatever, if it's a private school, you own a school, you run a school, how many times do you pass through these classes? How many times do you see these processes happening? Or do you announce you're passing before you pass so teachers will now behave well before you pass? You get, how much do we pay attention to this? And if you're an administrative officer and you're getting a report of a teacher calling a child Olodo, and then please point it to the teacher, it means the teacher is not teaching well. You get, like, I mean, if you're going to remove a child because the child is dumb, then why are we coming to school in the first place? If not to learn, if not to build capacity. So the admin officers should actually be attacked and be held responsible in situations like this.
But what if that stereotype is coming from the house? Maybe a parent is telling his or her child, see what your mates are doing in school, your own is just to go. Don't make sure you don't do this subject because you know you're not good in it. How do we handle the issue like this?
Okay, when it's coming from the house, it's kind of tricky because when you face it outside, you run back to the house. So when it's coming from the house and you're also facing it from outside, you have yourself and God to battle with. So my advice to anyone is you have more work to do. You should find what works for you. Finding what works for you, you have to create alternatives to learning. There are visual types of learning and there are other types of learning. So you have to just create a niche for yourself because what what phases away disgrace is when you're successful, or when you can prove a point that yes, I was stamped this, but I can still do it.
Thank you very much, Emmanuel, for that one. The numbers have not changed: 090-9222-9922 or 091-226-77989. Feel free to call in. We're talking about student stereotypes. You can as well send a WhatsApp message to the number 0806-999-2999. Emmanuel, in a case where a student is being stereotyped and he or she reports to the authorities and nothing is done about it, how should the student handle this particular issue?
So I think avoiding those particular set of people is the best option, or better still, prove the point that you can do what they say you can't do.
In proving the point, like, okay, some people don't give up easily. There are people who, no matter what you do and no matter how you try to avoid them, they'll keep coming and coming for you. In cases like that, real life situations in campus, I'm not talking about secondary school or primary school, in campuses right now, and this keeps happening every day. For how long? When you're talking about avoiding the person, it might even lead to you not going to school and missing classes. So for how long would you continue? Exactly. For how long would you continue to hide and miss classes because of this group of people?
Then if you can't hide, you have to prove the point, because I had this issue in school. That should be my ND1 days. We are having a course, and I really understood the course, but I was not really showing interest in the course. So people were saying that I was proud and I did not want to show others what I knew about the course. So I was telling them it's not all about being proud, but I don't have time. But they don't believe, so I just had to create time for myself and time for them also, to prove the point that actually it's not all about that I was hiding, but I was busy. Most of them started coming close to me. They understood that actually it's not really that I was trying to avoid them, but I was trying to tell them that I'm bigger than them, but it's that I did not have time. So they understood from my own standpoint.
Good morning, we can hear you. Okay, I'm sorry I have to let you go, but do well to call us back. We could hear you, but you couldn't hear us. But you said something about knowing a particular course, but because you were not interested, that your fellow classmates saw you as being proud and not wanting to tell them what's happening. Sometimes when someone doesn't tell you a particular thing or about a course, it doesn't mean that person is proud. And that's a way of stereotyping someone, because you ask the person a question and the person didn't answer, and the next thing you're saying the person is proud. That's another form of stereotype. Hello, good morning. If you see someone and maybe you ask the person a question in exam hall and the person didn't answer you, the next thing you're saying this person is proud because the person didn't answer you, that's another form of stereotype.
Yes.
That's the point I'm trying to make, actually.
Yes.
So, Mary Jacob, the question I asked him when I said, if you report to the authorities about being stereotyped by a group of people, a particular student, and nothing is done about it, how do you handle that as a student?
Okay, so the chances that you can seek external help, okay, what kind of extensions are you building for yourself? What kind of network do you have? So in your network, you're going to definitely find people to call. So that's why I'm asking, what kind of networks are you building for yourself? Because Emmanuel right now has a link with Whisper to Humanity right now. And if Emmanuel is facing some form of stereotypes in school, and if he's being stereotyped and he reports to the school authorities and nothing happens, I'm sure he can actually reach out because he has a network in Whisper, right? But if you are a student whose network is probably someone that is going to tell you to run away, chances are you're going to run away. So the point is, how many what kind of network are you building for yourself? We're not leaving, we're here, and if you start running, you're going to keep running. And I have a problem with having a victim run or hide when we should be stopping the abuse or stopping the oppressor.
So that's it. We are all on different life journeys. And if people are trying to oppress you, people are trying to put you in a box and trying to put tags on you, you don't owe them to prove it to them either. And if you can't make it stop, then shut it out. Don't hide, don't run. Or if you can't make them stop, then stop listening to them. You get, like, just make sure it's not your thing again. It's not something you care about again. Like, you care about you care about your good, and that's where the network comes. If you had people that are giving you like reminders that, like, okay, yeah, you're good, you're doing this, you're amazing, and you will find yourself believing people you trust, right? And you can't be stuck in believing some other young people who you don't even know where they're coming from, where they're headed. You get. So it's just prioritizing your network and prioritizing yourself.
Alright, prioritize your network and prioritize yourself. We have a WhatsApp message from Fauci. He says, "Good morning, Whispers and Boss Radio. Stereotype is wrong for a growing child in school. Discover the learning style and dynamics of each child, and teaching them will not be a difficult adventure." Alright, thank you very much, Fauci. So that's the much we can take on today's episode of the program, Whispers and Class Show on Boss Radio 98.9 FM Owerri. Don't forget, next week Saturday is another time for you to be part of the conversation. My name is Vivi. Thank you, Mary Jacob and Emmanuel, for being a part of the show.
Thank you.